Previously on Lost.
Then Sawyer, remember, he had a gun from before when he killed the polar bear. So he gave his extra gun to Kate. Read it, Freckles. And so she reads it, and basically it's a note that says, it's from some little kid, and says, "Dear Mr. Sawyer, you had sex with my mother, and my dad got mad at her, and then he killed her, and he killed himself." This video is Lost Part 15. It is an episode about Sawyer. It is the episode entitled Outlaws. The very beginning is a flashback of a very young Sawyer when he was a little kid. And he hears some ruckus, and his mother comes in and says, he's here, you have to hide under the bed. So he gets under the bed, and she leaves the room. Outside you hear a bunch of commotion, and eventually you hear the mother screaming, "Why do you have a gun? Why do you have a gun?" Something like that. And then you hear a gunshot. But in walks, I'm assuming it has to be his father. And he doesn't know that he's there. And so he comes and he sits on the bed, and then he takes the gun that he's holding, and he blows his head off. Sawyer instantly wakes up. So actually the flashback was somewhat of a nightmare, but it still serves as a flashback. And he hears something inside the little hut that he's built on the beach. He gets a flashlight, and he's like, "What the hell is that?" But anyways, and he looks, and there's a boar in his tent place. And he gets up and chases the thing off with a stick. Well, he goes tearing off into the jungle. It's nighttime, by the way. He's trying to track down the boar with this stick that he has. He's like, I'm going to have me some pork chops in the morning. He thinks he hears whispering, and he thinks he hears something say, "It'll come back around." Flashback time. Sawyer comes into, I don't know what city he's in, but he actually comes into his hotel room. I'm assuming it's a hotel room. But anyways, waiting in the dark is this guy that Sawyer knows from a previous, I guess, a con job or something. And he's surprised to see him. I guess they had some bad blood between them or something. And this guy has an envelope for Sawyer and says, "I want to make things right between us. I have this envelope." And he's like, "What the hell do you think I want to even hear from you at all? And just leave me alone. I'm just going to go grow my hair some more." He's like, no, in this envelope, I have, the whereabouts of the man that ruined your life. So he takes the envelope, and he's like, okay, cool, this is good, all right. Okay, meanwhile, elsewhere, Jack and Kate are putting their guns back in the air marshal's case that Jack has hidden out in the jungle behind some bushes. And Kate asks, "Oh, did you get them all back?" He's like, "No, all except one." And she's like, "Oh, well, which one?" And Jack's like, "Well, 3 guesses who didn't give me theirs back." And she's like, "Sawyer. He's such a badass. I'll go visit him." And she's like, "I'll get it back for you." He's like, "I don't want you to owe him anything." She's like, "Please, how else am I supposed to get to know him?" Okay, so back to the flashback. He goes down to Sydney. He goes and buys a gun there in Sydney. And the guy works at one of those, mobile, food stands, and it just happens to be, shrimp or something. And so the guy's like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" He doesn't see the gun. I'm just showing it for a little bit later. You find out, he's like, "Oh, I'm Frank, by the way. I'm an American, too." He's like, "What's your name?" And you find out that Sawyer's first name is James. That's when he pulls out the gun. The guy's not looking. He, turns his back to cook shrimp for him because he says he wants some with hot sauce. And his hand is, shaking, and he finds out that he really can't do it. He can't shoot this guy. Before this guy is done preparing the food, Sawyer takes off in his car. So Sawyer is out in the jungle looking for the boar. He's been out there searching for a little while. And Kate comes up behind him because he's not having much success at it. "You're going to need my help." He's like, "Oh, I need your help, baby, with something I can't even talk about on network television, okay?" So you get the idea that they have been searching all day for this boar that Sawyer wants to kill. They have a little campfire. He pulls out a little bottle of alcohol, and she's like, "Where did you get that?" He's like, "I found the liquor card on the plane." She's like, "You got any more of those? A girl could use a drink with a hot stud like you around." He's like, "Okay, but if you're going to drink, you're going to play." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "You're going to play I Never." And it's a drinking game where you say "I never" and then finish the sentence. So they take turns saying, "I never did this, I never did that," and then they take drinks back and forth. After they go back and forth 5 times, Sawyer's like, "I never killed a man." And then, she takes her bottle and, fucking drains it. And then he takes his bottle and fucking drains it. The point being that they find out that each other has killed someone. And so Sawyer's like, well, I guess we have something in common after all. Now, when it gets real dark and this fire dies down, won't you climb on top of me? Well, because he wasn't able to shoot the guy, Sawyer goes to this bar and decides to, like, drink, just, like, really heavily. The other person that's in the bar is Jack's father. Like, Sawyer was drinking out of this big-ass tequila bottle or something, and that looks like a penis. Okay, we're going to erase that. So he starts drinking with him and was like, why are you here? And Sawyer says, I'm here because of business. And so he's talking to him and saying, I have a son your age, and he kind of betrayed me, but I still love him, and he actually did me a favor, and I could call him, but I'm weak. You know, that's why I'm destined to suffer. It's fate. And then he tells Sawyer, that's why the Red Sox will never win the series. But he tells him, this business that you have here, will it ease your suffering? He says, yeah, I guess so. And he's like, well then, what the heck are you doing here? You know, like, go off and do it. And Sawyer comes back to the shrimp place, because now he has the balls to pull off what he's going to do. And the guy that was running the little shrimp coach, or whatever it was, is outside and taking his garbage to the trash. And he just kind of walks up behind him and says, Sawyer! And as he turns around to look, he shoots him dead on in the heart. And the guy falls to the ground. And Sawyer kneels down to him and says, I have a letter for you, and starts to read the letter that he has carried with him since he was a little kid. And says, Dear Mr. Sawyer, he's like, who the hell is Sawyer? I think the guy's friend that gave him the envelope, his name was Hibbs. And he's like, are you with Hibbs? And he's like, how do you know Hibbs? He's like, I owed him money. And he's like, oh my God. So basically what happened is that Hibbs tricked Sawyer into thinking that this guy was actually the real Sawyer, when actually he owed Hibbs money, so that he knew that he would come and kill him, because I guess Hibbs didn't have the balls to do it. Just before this guy dies, it's like, you know, because he realizes he made a mistake, he says, it'll come back around. And that's what Sawyer has been hearing in the jungle from the whispers. Well, during the night, Sawyer has the nightmare where he has to hide under the bed as a child, and his father comes in and blows his head off on the bed. And he wakes up. And they look around, but like Sawyer's stuff is just like all strewn about, all over their little campsite, right? And he's like, oh my God, the boar was here and took our stuff. So they continue searching, and they come across this little, like, I guess it's like a little mud hole. And so they know that he's close. Well, Sawyer hears some squealing off in the distance, and he comes back with a little tiny baby boar. And then so she kicks him in the leg, and he drops the boarlet or piglet or whatever the hell it is, and then it runs off into the jungle. He's like, I wasn't going to hurt it. She's like, I'm tired of you. You're sick. You're such a pig. Thanks for the tequila and everything, but, like, I'm going to go now. So Sawyer's out in the jungle trying to find his way home, and he comes across the boar, and it's just kind of standing there and staring at him. And he pulls out the gun that he had. You find out that off in the distance, like, Kate, I guess, was following him, and is just standing there watching him to see whether or not he's going to shoot the boar. And then after a while, he finally lowers the gun, and then he sees Kate and says, oh, it's just a boar. Let's get back to camp. Sawyer comes to Jack. He's breaking up like pieces of wood, I guess for like fire or whatever. He comes to bring Jack the gun. And he's like, I asked you for this 2 days ago. He's like, yeah, well, I made a deal with your girlfriend. Jack asks Sawyer, what did she give you? And Sawyer, being the pig that he is, says, nothing she wasn't willing to give up. Like, I guess trying to give Jack the idea that maybe they slept together when they really didn't. And Jack just shakes his head like, I can't believe that. And he says, that's why the Red Sox will never win the series. And Sawyer says, what did you say? He says, oh, it's just something my father said. He said that because he left everything up to fate and just thought that that's how things worked out. And Sawyer looks all somber, was like, crap, I knew this guy's dad. And he's like, why are you asking about my father? He's like, no reason. Because, you know, Sawyer's got to, like, hold things in and keep secrets and whatever. But anyhow, that's how the episode ends.